Now at 11, taking the lead. Kim Janey breaking barriers as Boston's new mayor.
Happy to lead our city and to serve the residents of Boston.
How she spent her first day on the job.
Marty Walsh in Washington. The city's former mayor sworn in as the country's new Secretary of Labor. We have night team covering.
Then a shooting suspect in custody. A Colorado community dealing with tragedy as police investigate a deadly supermarket shooting.
Not as much sun around tomorrow, but we hold on to the mild temps.
And a sign taking aim at the Sox. The billboard sending a message outside of Fenway Park.
7 News at 11 starts now. Tonight on 7, ready to serve.
I am so proud and thrilled to be in this position.
Now that we have the first black female mayor, it peels back the layers for the world to see who Boston is.
Boston's new mayor, making history.
The city's new acting mayor, Kim Janey, breaking barriers.
She's the city's first black mayor and the first woman to hold the job. Today was her first day at work as she replaces former Mayor Marty Walsh. While she was getting down to work here in Boston, Walsh was in Washington for his swearing-in ceremony. He's officially the new U.S. Secretary of Labor.
We have night team coverage for you at 11, from how acting mayor Kim Janey spent her first day in office to former Mayor Marty Walsh's new position in D.C. We'll start at City Hall and the night team's Justin Bork.
Acting Mayor Kim Janey is no stranger to City Hall, but today she made history when she walked into that building.
Boston's new acting mayor Kim Janey reflects on her first full day on the job.
It was a wonderful first day. Really excited.
The 55-year-old kept a low profile today with no public events, but she made an unannounced stop at her former middle school in Charlestown, reflecting on a turbulent period of court-ordered busing to force desegregation of the schools. Janey says the city has come a long way in the 4 decades since.
Started my day at the Edwards Middle School, the same school that I was bused to as a child. Saw wonderful things happening in the classroom with young people, so really excited and encouraged.
Janey stepped up from her previous role as city council president last night when former mayor Marty Walsh was confirmed as labor secretary and resigned. She says she's focused on recovering from the pandemic and safely reopening our city.
I am so proud and thrilled to be in this position and happy to lead our city and to serve the residents of Boston.
And Janey will take the oath of office tomorrow morning at 11:45. At City Hall, Justin Bork, 7 News Night Team.
And we'll have live coverage of Janey being sworn into office tomorrow morning at 11:45. You can watch it all right here on 7 News.
Marty Walsh sworn in as the new Secretary of Labor in the nation's capital. As we mentioned, Vice President Kamala Harris presiding over the ceremony. Walsh was confirmed by the Senate yesterday and is excited to start his new job in the Biden administration. The night team's Dan Housley, the only Boston TV reporter there for the ceremony, and he has the latest tonight from Washington.
Former Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, now the U.S. Secretary of Labor, one of just 11 cabinet members closely advising the new president. Vice President Kamala Harris giving him the oath of office just a few hours ago with the president on the road.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Secretary. Congratulations.
Marty Walsh sworn in as Secretary of Labor and officially welcomed to the Biden administration with an elbow bump from the vice president. All business and answering no questions after the ceremony. I did get a chance to talk to the former mayor as he left Boston, clutching the last Doughboys Donuts coffee he'll see in a little while, at least.
It's bittersweet. You know, being mayor was an incredible job. Loved it. You know, it's a little emotional this morning, but I'm looking forward to my new challenge.
Walsh is going to work for a boss who says he will be the most pro-labor and pro-union president ever. In Walsh, he gets the first card-carrying union member as labor secretary in nearly 50 years. How you feeling as you head out?
I'm excited to do work for President Biden and Vice President Harris. Looking forward to working on behalf of the American people. And doing what I can.
On arrival in D.C., New Englanders also getting off the plane wished Walsh well in his new job.
Good luck. Thank you, guys.
Those closest to the former mayor shared the big moment of his swearing in. His longtime partner Lori Higgins was there with him, along with 2 close friends. And I learned there's a nice personal story behind the Bible that Marty Walsh swore the oath of office on. It actually belongs to his longtime partner, Lori's great-grandmother, passed on to an uncle who is a priest. We're in Washington. Dan Housley, 7 News 19.
Now, from the 19, a city stunned and saddened.
It is personal. This is my community. I live here.
10 lives have been lost. More families have been shattered by gun violence in the state of Colorado.
A suspected shooter arrested and charged.
We will hold the evildoer responsible.
Tonight, the nation mourning and remembering the victims of a supermarket shooting.
And a live look outside that supermarket in Boulder, Colorado tonight, where 10 people were shot and killed. Investigators still out there on the scene more than 24 hours later, and police are still searching for a motive. Tonight, those victims, they're being remembered. The Night Team's Justin Doherty live in the newsroom with the very latest.
And Kiki, that suspect has been charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. Now, more than 24 hours after the shooting, many continue to honor the victims, which include a young store manager and a police officer. A growing memorial now sits outside the Colorado supermarket where 10 people were shot and killed Monday. Tonight, we're hearing from some of the victims' families.
Eric is my son. He was so deeply loved by everyone.
A mother now remembering her son, 51-year-old police officer Eric Talley, a father of 7.
Ranging from the ages of 7 to 20. He's a strong Catholic and deep faith. He loves his wife.
Another victim, 25-year-old Ricky Olds. Her family says she was a manager at the store.
She's giggly and bubbly and just you couldn't be sad around her. She wasn't having it.
Video now shows what it was like inside the store as the shooting unfolded.
My God. Guys, we got people down inside King Soopers.
Several minutes after the first shots were fired, you can see the massive police response. The wounded suspect taken into custody by police. He's been identified as 21-year-old Ahmed Alyssa. Police documents say he was armed with an assault rifle and wore an armored vest. According to an arrest affidavit, Alyssa purchased the weapon on March 16th, just 6 days before the attack. A motive remains unknown.
There's no good motive. It's evil. It's evil. And you know what? No matter what it is, it's not going to make sense to anybody. It still doesn't make sense.
President Biden now calling for gun reform, urging lawmakers to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
This is not and should not be a partisan issue. This is an American issue. It will save lives, American lives, and we have to act.
President Biden also called on the Senate today. He said senators should pass 2 House bills that close background check loopholes. Live in the newsroom, Justin Doherty, 7 News 19.
Stay with the news station for the latest on the supermarket shooting. We'll have updates on air, online, and on the 7 News app.
Breaking news from Fenway Park, the city of Boston allowing food vendors to operate outside the park starting opening day. The Public Works Department reversing their decision to delay having vendors at the park for 2 months. City officials say those vendors will have to follow specific safety guidelines, though, during the pandemic.
And new tonight in the coronavirus emergency, the state has given the okay for graduations to go forward this spring, but there are some guidelines that have to be followed. They can be inside or outside as long as they adhere to the venue's capacity limits. No food or drink is allowed. The number of guests is limited to 6 per graduate. And all of those guests, they have to register in advance. Face coverings, they're required. Now, if you're worried about getting those graduation photos, maybe graduates will be able, to take masks off for pictures, but it'll have to be at special locations, schools set up for picture taking.
Before graduation, they'll have to finish the school year, and just how that is done is really a bone of contention in so many communities. Still, dozens of school districts across the Commonwealth are asking for a delay in meeting the state's requirement for some students to return to in-person learning. The Night Team's Ryan Schulteis here live in the newsroom with more. Ryan?
The state education commissioner told schools elementary students have to be back in the classroom full-time April 5th, but many schools are asking for that date to be pushed back. Now, today we learned 74 school systems put in requests for a delay. The state has approved 58 of those requests. 6 have been denied, and 10 still under review. Now, Boston Public Schools among those still waiting for a decision. School officials say the extra time will allow the district to properly prepare and make sure most staff gets their COVID-19 vaccine. But some frustrated parents have started a petition asking the state to reject the waiver and demand the district open 5 days a week.
And we're allowing people from outside of the city to come in to Fenway, to TD Garden, to all these restaurants, but yet the kids of the city, the children in the city, aren't allowed to be in their schools. It just seems like our priorities are really off.
The superintendent of Boston Public Schools says health and safety of students and staff is a top priority. She spoke at a virtual meeting today, sounding confident about the district's request for a delay.
We filed the waiver this past Monday. We anticipate acceptance. If for some reason we don't get that, I think what will happen is the commissioner then will ask us to just provide further information, and then we should be able to get the waiver.
Now, some of the largest districts in the state were granted a delay. Chelsea will have an extra week to welcome back kindergarten through 4th grade. They got an extra 3 weeks in Brockton. And Somerville, they got a waiver to push back full-time learning for K through 8th until April 28th. Like Boston, Worcester is still waiting for a decision on its waiver request. In the newsroom, Ryan Schulte, 7 News 19.
Governor Charlie Baker testifying in front of state lawmakers today about the state's response to the pandemic and the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. He says the Biden administration is urging states to expand mass vaccination sites in an effort to speed up distribution.
We're working closely with the federal administration and with the support and advocacy of our congressional delegation have applied for a FEMA-sponsored mass vaccination site here in Massachusetts.
Governor also saying Massachusetts has received far less vaccine supply than the federal government promised, creating an extra challenge in the rollout. Revere opening a new COVID-19 vaccination site at the Wonderland Ballroom. The site will operate Tuesday through Saturday and will be staffed by members of the National Guard and members of the community. The new site plans to give out about 400 shots a day.
Some questions are being raised about COVID-19 vaccine data released by AstraZeneca. The National Institutes of Health says an independent panel of medical experts is concerned AstraZeneca's numbers could give an incomplete view of the vaccine's efficacy results. Experts say this kind of transparency proves safeguards are in place, especially since the FDA has not approved AstraZeneca's vaccine for emergency use here in the U.S.
The data that was in the press release were somewhat outdated and might in fact be misleading a bit.
The public should rest assured that nothing will get approved unless the FDA does a thorough analysis of this data.
The AstraZeneca vaccine is being used in some overseas countries. The company says it's safe and they hope it'll be approved by the FDA for emergency use here next month. Stay with the news station for the latest in the coronavirus emergency. When we aren't on the air, you can always get updates at WHDH.com and in the 7 News app.
Also from the night team, a school bus scare in Shrewsbury. Several students taken to the hospital when their bus collided with a tractor trailer. Everyone is expected to be okay. The night team, Steve Cooper, has more on the chaotic crash.
This was terrifying because this was a bus.
Scary moments here on Route 20 in Shrewsbury following a crash between a school bus and a tractor-trailer truck near Avalon Way around 7:30 a.m.
Their driver is complaining of injuries. There's 10 students on the bus and 2 are complaining of injuries.
The 911 calls were coming in about a crash involving a bus. And when officers and other first responders got to the scene, they discovered that it involved a school bus.
7 of the 10 kids headed to the Alhambra Academy, plus the school bus driver, were all transported to the UMass Medical Center in Worcester with what were described as mainly minor injuries. The students ranging from kindergarten to 8th grade.
I saw a big 18-wheel truck touching the bus, and it looked serious.
It was very frightening because I didn't expect a call from school at 8 a.m. telling me that my son was involved in a school bus accident on Route 20, where the same thing happened with my daughter a couple of years ago.
The truck driver wasn't hurt and was cooperating with investigators. This is the second incident in 2 years on Route 20 near the school involving Academy students. And it's left the principal infuriated.
I can't even begin to tell you how concerning it is because it's not the first time it's happened. And that's what's most concerning to me. It's really unfortunate that really nothing's done about it.
The area around the crash scene was sealed off for hours with police investigating, but a huge sigh of relief at the same time that the injuries weren't more serious.
I'm so grateful that everybody is okay.
So one by one, the injured students were being released from the hospital. We're told the bus driver suffered a more serious shoulder injury. As for the crash itself, police tell us that remains under investigation. In Shrewsbury, Steve Cooper, 7 News 19.
A private school under construction going up in flames in Milton. Fire officials say when they went inside, they found a heavy fire in the attic. Part of the building collapsed as fire departments worked to put out the flames. The fire department was on scene for hours, working to contain the blaze. Sky 7 HD over the scene after the fire had been put out, and you can see that the entire location is left charred and it's collapsed on itself. Officials say no one was injured, and the cause of the fire is still being investigated tonight.
And coming up, another nice spring day in the books for Boston. JR has a full check of the forecast.
Mild again tomorrow. A few more clouds around. Eventually some rain out of those clouds. We'll time that out in a few minutes.
Then, thank you, Betts. What some Red Sox fans are saying about this new billboard outside Fenway Park.
And the Pats adding to their roster what one of the team's newest additions is now saying. We're back tonight.